It is September 12th at 7:35 p.m. Welcome to Under the Hood, Episode 7. I'm Eli Karp, Editor-in-Chief. Along with my panel today, we have Danimal, Eric, Jake Ostern, and Spentano here. Lots to get to as usual, and I think we can all say we are glad that football is back. Sundays have officially become tolerable, and it was an intriguing week one. Lots of down-to-the-wire games. I secured 2 wins in fantasy so far, one over our dear friend Kenny, and one in another league. It was an interesting week. Keenan Allen going down with the torn ACL kind of screwed me over, but without much further delay, let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Also, just a reminder, if you are watching live, whether it is through our website, which you can do, through the YouTube page or through the Google Plus Events page, only through the Google Plus Events page can you submit a question, and do not submit it in the comments box. That I do not see until this is over. You have to go through the questions app. So otherwise I will not see your question, but we do encourage it. We will be here answering your questions live. Let's start with our winners of the week, NFL Week 1. Jake Ostern, I'm going to start with you. Jake?
All right, so my week one winner is Drew Brees, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. He had 423 passing yards, 4 touchdown passes, and completed 28 out of 42 pass attempts. Even though they lost 35-34 to the Raiders, Drew Brees put up some excellent stats, put up some great numbers. He showed why he's one of the dominant quarterbacks in the league, and had a great year last year, and he's gonna continue that this year.
Even at in his mid-30s, Drew Brees showing no signs of slowing down. And against a young, bright Raiders team, he still managed to dissect their defense. Spentano, who won Week 1 for you?
Actually, the week one winners for me were Dan Bailey, Steven Gostowski, and all tier one kickers because you saw Arizona lose on a kick. You saw Carolina lose on a kick. Both 45, 50 yarders, pretty makeable. And I think that the kicking quality, especially with the extra points, has just gone down. And teams are going to be wanting to pay these big kickers because it's affecting their win-loss record.
Yesterday seemed to be quite a big day looking at the kickers. A lot of games came down to the wire with everything on the line coming down to a right or a left foot. And I found it very interesting. A lot of extra points were missed yesterday. It just seemed a little more uncharacteristic than usual, even after they've moved it back to the 33-yard line, or the 33-yard extra point. I mentioned it yesterday. It seemed like there were more missed extra points in Week 1 than all of last season. The Giants missed one. Matt Prater missed one for the Lions. Nick Folk missed one. The Jets, which ended up costing them the game. I mean, there were a lot of missed kicks and a lot of field goals at the end of games that decided, such as Arizona and New Orleans, Oakland, the Giants, which never actually got to a field goal. Lots of things that really relied on the kickers. Danimal, your Week 1 winner is?
I have to go with Kansas City on this one. Coming back from a 3 touchdown deficit is not easy. And you look at the game, and yes, San Diego kind of collapsed early, but I mean, it's not easy to come back from 3 touchdowns. Most teams kind of, the fans give up hope. They walk out of the stadium. They think they sticks. You have no momentum, and the Chiefs really just went opposite of that. Alex Smith had a solid day. Spencer Ware filling in for Jamal Charles had a solid day, and it was good all around. And I'm glad to see that win in Arrowhead.
Okay, and we are going to finish up with Eric, your winner.
The New England Patriots, this might come as a surprise, but I picked them to lose the game because no Brady, of course, no Gronkowski, no Rob Ninkovich, no Dion Lewis. Those are 4 very good players that were not playing. Going into arguably the best team in the NFL on the road, I did not see the Patriots winning this one, but like you said, the kickers come down to it, and we have a good one, and Arizona's blew them.
All right, and my Week 1 winner is Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I said at the a couple episodes ago, I like Jameis. I think he's in for a big year, and he looked for real yesterday. He threw at will, torching the Atlanta defense, 4 touchdowns, a beautiful one to Mike Evans, and aside from his 1 interception early, he really looked like he was in control and comfortable. The defense held up to Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Devontae Freeman, and new head coach Dirk Cutter. The era begins smoothly for Tampa Bay, so I think they won big yesterday. Huge divisional matchup, and Atlanta just could not get it done once again. And with that, we're going to turn to our big loser of the week, and I will kind of snake here, and I'll start with myself. It has to be the San Diego Chargers for me. I mean, they were not really given much of a chance on the road against the Chiefs, but they were up 21-3 in Arrowhead on the road. They had silenced the crowd. The Chiefs had no momentum, and then Keenan Allen goes down. That's kind of where it begins to fall apart. They lose Keenan Allen, arguably their best player, to a season-ending ACL tear, and then they proceed to blow their 21-3 lead and lose to the Chiefs in overtime. This looks like something that really is insurmountable for the Chargers this early in the season. It's something you do not like to see because the injury bug has really hit them and Keenan Allen in particular a lot, but it's just not good if you're a San Diego Charger fan. Danimal, your Week 1 loser is?
I have to go with RG3 on this one. Throwing a pick and no TDs against the Eagles definitely hurts them. And RG3, it's not like, oh, it's Week 1, you can just throw this away. RG3, after his collapse in Washington, he needs to prove stuff here. And Cleveland might be his last shot before he becomes one of those like savvy backups that just never gets playing time. Unless you're the Vikings, then you're the starting Sean Hill. But especially with him getting hurt, putting him on the injury reserve, when he comes back, the Browns season might just be over, especially with the Browns. We all know how they're going to act this season, most likely. And it's sad to see him fail like this. He had such a great career in college, and it just hasn't transferred in the NFL.
It's actually very funny. I find it amusing that the Browns, for a while, have had one of the worst starting quarterback situations in the NFL for a good 15 or 20 years, and with RG3, things really have not gotten better. But they have one of the best backups in the league in Josh McCown, which is funny to me because they have an awful starting quarterback, but in my opinion, one of the best backups. I think Josh McCown will do better with this Browns team than RG3 would have. And this is just another bump in the road on the RG3 tour. Jake Ostern, what went wrong for your loser yesterday?
Well, it's Des Bryant of the Dallas Cowboys. He only caught 1 pass for 8 yards. He was targeted 5 times. To me, that's unacceptable for such a high caliber wide receiver. I don't care if Tony Romo is or isn't in the lineup, but the Cowboys have Dak Prescott, who has a good arm, and it just mind boggles me that Des Bryant, who's one of the top wide receivers in the National Football League, caught only 1 pass for 8 yards. It's just unbelievable to read that statistic.
Spentano, you want to get in on this?
Yeah, so I watched that entire game, and I feel like Dez is getting too much hate for that, I guess, because those 4 targets were all at least 35 yard bombs. They were all in the end zone, and Dak, he hasn't really proven himself throwing deep, and his throws were a bit off there. He completed 9 passes to Wynn and 8 passes to Beasley, most of them under 10 yards, and he just got a lot of rack off that. And they didn't use Dez at all in the short passing game, which they should have, in my opinion.
And I'll compare the Dez situation to one of DeAndre Hopkins of a similar caliber, top 5, top 7 receiver in the league. And obviously Dez is working with Dak Prescott and whoever the Cowboys' plethora of quarterbacks were filling in for Romo last season, and he's not managing to get it done. And yet DeAndre Hopkins with Brandon Weeden and Brian Hoyer and TJ Yates put up fantastic numbers last season. So I think that you can blame it on the quarterback situation, but he has to be able to get it done better when you see players of his caliber being able to find a way. Eric, who you got?
I have the Indianapolis Colts. They lost to a very bad Detroit Lions team with their best player within the last 20 years, Calvin Johnson, retiring. No really superstar on either sides of the ball. But the Colts, Andrew Luck's finally healthy again. See what they can do. Their defense is just proven to be awful, letting up 39 points to the Matt Stafford-led Lions. Stafford, yes, can put up numbers, but like I said, does not have any real legit options. You could say Marvin Jones, but nothing really.
All right, and yeah, I do find it interesting. The Colts almost pulled a Chiefs after being down 21-3 or somewhere in that range early, and then coming back to tie it at 28, and then actually taking the lead 35-34 after Matt Prater's missed extra point with 45 seconds to go in the game, and then proceeding to give up the game-winning field goal to the Lions after their defense was just absolutely carved up. It really shows that Andrew Luck can do a lot, but when you're losing to a team like the Lions, who have kind of expected to have a rough year, Andrew Luck can't do it all on his own. As we've gone through Jake Ostern, Eric, Spentano, who's your loser?
My loser is actually the Dallas Cowboys, not because of the whole Terrence Williams situation, but because of Ezekiel Elliott's performance. He had 51 yards on 20 rush attempts, with his longest being an 8-yard rush, which in my opinion is just unacceptable behind one of the probably top 5 at least best offensive lines in the last few years. And if you just look at Alfred Morris had 7 attempts and he had 35 yards, averaging 5. So it's just not looking like a good pick after week 1, especially when Jalen Ramsey was on the board, and Ramsey had a pretty nice week 1 where he allowed 0 receptions against the best quarterback in the league.
Well, I wouldn't fall off the hype train just yet if I were you as a Cowboys fan, and even as a Giant fan, I do have to say I would not get too down. He's obviously shown plenty of talent. This was his first NFL game. Again, I will go back to the ESPN big boards for fantasy saying he was 6th overall. I still think that's a mistake. But at the same time, I will say 2 words, and that is Snacks Harrison, because he is one of the best run stoppers in the league. The Giants just got him, and playing in his first game, Ezekiel Elliott was not facing the Giants' run defense of last year, where they would have given him holes to run through and gladly given him points. So I wouldn't have fallen off the hype train just yet. No, it wasn't a good performance, but I think the Giants had a little bit to do with that, and I'll come back to you.
So, yeah, I would have been completely fine with that. Like, the Giants, they played pretty good defense, but Alfred Morris had 35 yards in 1/3 of the carries, so it's not like it was impossible to get through. He just ran a lot better than Zeke did.
Fair. Definitely his first game. So now that we've finished our big winners and big losers, we are going to begin our little debate segment of tonight. I know we are all excited for that. So let's begin with not football, but our brief comic relief, if you want to call it, with our baseball section, and that is last week the Mets, yes, the Mets, decided to sign Tim Tebow to a minor league contract, turning lots of heads. Some thought the Braves would sign him, but Eric and Jake Ostern are going to take to the debate table on this. And Eric, let's start with you. Should the Mets have signed Tim Tebow? Is this a good or a bad move?
Absolutely not. This is a terrible move for the Mets. A team like the Braves, I can see that because they're the worst team in baseball. They need someone to sell seats for the minor league team. Although the Mets were in the World Series last year, and in the race again this year. They do not need another attention distraction away from the actual baseball, and Tim Tebow just should not be playing baseball right now.
Jake Ostern.
Eric Anderson, I do not know why you're saying that. 60-yard dash time for Tim Tebow was around a 6.7. That was very impressive to the scouts. According to several scouts, the time was average to above average for a major league player. In the batting cage, he had a lot of power, some home runs during the batting practice session. He has some incredible bat speed. The exit speed off the bat is just incredible. According to an NL scout, Tebow did great with breaking balls. He did face against two pitchers, David Aardsma and Chad Smith. And he's 6'3", 255 pounds. He's a big, muscular guy, and the Mets did the right thing by adding him because they could add some power to their minor league system. And it's a good signing. It adds some uniqueness to the organization.
Now, Jake, do you think that this move, albeit very attention-gathering, will it actually sell seats to their minor league team?
I think so because, Tim Tebow is just another example of a multi-sport athlete. Bo Jackson did it. Michael Jordan did it. Tim Tebow is such a popular guy. He will attract so many fans, and fans will be intrigued to see him play in a Mets minor league uniform. And I think ticket sales will greatly improve for the minor leagues and for the stadiums rather.
All right, Eric, would you like to counter?
Oh, most definitely. I don't know what scouts you're talking to, but I've heard he absolutely struggled with breaking balls. He could not hit them. But what was I going to say? And, when you're in the field, it requires you to throw. So and Tim Tebow has had much struggles with that over his football career, let alone a baseball career. And like you said, the two-sport athletes, Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson played it collegiately and picked it up fully. Tim Tebow hasn't played in over 10 years. There's no way he can make it anywhere, let alone Double-A, not let alone the major leagues.
Okay, Eric. Jake, would you like a counter?
Yes, Eric. Everybody has to start somewhere in their career, whether it's becoming a professional athlete or being an actor, actress, whatever it may be. But you have to find a ground to start. It's how do you think the best baseball players got to be professional baseball players? By practice. And I think it's very intriguing for another sport athlete to try another sport. I think it's kind of great for the game that someone in another sport wants to try another sport and see how they do.
Yes, but Jake, like you said, they practice. Tim Tebow didn't do that for 12 years.
I know, but you have to find a starting ground, Eric. It's great that Tim Tebow's trying to play baseball. It makes the sport so much popular because they have another sport athlete who's very popular, who's a great person that is involved in another sport.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to have to stop you there. Eric, I'm going to have to stop you guys there because we have to get on to our second semifinal debate. The winners of each debate will face off in the final debate to determine who is the winner, and they will hear their question on the spot. I will reveal the winners after the next segment. And our next debate between Danimal and Spentano is, are the Jaguars for real? They played the Green Bay Packers yesterday, did not get the dub, but they did put up quite a fight. And I'm going to start with Dan. Are the Jaguars for real?
Well, see, the Jaguars playing Green Bay yesterday, that is a real test for them. Obviously, they're going to be playing teams like Green Bay in the playoffs, and it's a real test. Obviously, 107 degrees on the field yesterday, and Green Bay is not used to that. Obviously, Jacksonville, that should be in their wheelhouse. And honestly, I think the defense just struggles way too much for them to be a real contender. They put no pressure on Rodgers yesterday, and if you give time to a quarterback like Rodgers or any other elite quarterback in the league, they're going to damage you big time. I like Jalen Ramsey. Their secondary isn't too bad. That was a good pick for them. And onto their offense, Bortles, I don't know how to feel about Bortles, honestly. Sometimes he can rake it through, but sometimes he just doesn't come up clutch. Especially with assets like Hearns, Robinson, and Thomas, which all can be decent weapons for them. It's really depends on the arms of the quarterback, and it will really come down to Bortles. And I think this team can be a wild card contender, but I really don't think they'll go far.
Well, I have to say, Allen Robinson certainly laid a dud for me in fantasy yesterday, so screw you, Allen Robinson. I hope you do better next week. Speaking of Blake Bortles, who you brought up, Spentano, you reached for him in our draft, I will blatantly admit. Explain why you think the Jaguars are for real.
I think they're for real because of that man, Blake Bortles. I mean, he was tied for the most passing touchdowns in the league. Just 35 passing touchdowns is impressive, even if you throw that many interceptions. It's still 35 passing touchdowns. And they came within 4 points against what many people are putting as a top 3 team in the NFL right now. And that was without Chris Ivory, so maybe that established run game would have helped Bortles more. Yeldon didn't look bad, but Ivory certainly would have helped. He is in the hospital with an illness. Hope he gets better. And that offense is the last time they had Jordy Nelson, they were first in points. And they held them to 6 points in the second half, including a very clutch stop to get the ball back to go with a possibility on that game-winning drive. They got it down to the 14. They were very close to winning that game. And as just an extremely young team that was just a bottom feeder for at least 5 years, they are definitely on their way up.
All right, Dan, would you like to counter?
That is a good take, Spentano, but I gotta say, their weapons on offense, they're sometimes inconsistent. Julius Thomas, he's not what he used to be. Allen Robinson, obviously, I gotta give it up to him. He's one of the top wide receivers, obviously, not yesterday. Eli can comment on that. Allen Hearns, he's not bad either, but sometimes these guys do great, but sometimes they just put up goose eggs, like Eli said, and just don't do good. And in the playoffs, they just can't have that if they want to be a playoff team. And also, obviously, mottos over the years, we've all said before, defense wins championships. And I don't think they can match up with some of the top league's offenses. And I can definitely say this team is definitely on the rise, but they're definitely not legit yet, quite yet.
Coming from a Brady lover's mouth that a defense wins championships. Mark that one down in your books, people. All right, Spencer, coming to you.
Well, they just played a top 3 offense in the league, and they held with them 6 points in the second half, 2 field goals, both 12 minutes into each quarter, and athletic defense, which can be very helpful because that's what Denver had, and look at what Denver did. I'm not saying that they are Denver at all, but they are on their way towards that type of defense that will just harass you. Denver just won a Super Bowl just by that.
Dan, counter, or we'll move on?
I think we can move on.
All right. A reminder, if you're watching through the Google event page, please do submit a question. Again, that has to be through the questions app, not through the comments. We're happy to answer, but we won't see them unless you submit them through the questions app. So after our 2 semifinal debates, I have chosen the finalists of, if you want to put a drum roll in, I can't seem to find it here on the toolbox. We have Eric and Spentano in the final, All great arguments, really well done stuff, guys. But it'll be Eric and Spantano facing off in the final. And stick around right now because they are going to have to think on their feet because the first person to answer or to volunteer to answer the question I'm about to ask will have their pick of the side of the argument that they want. So, now, our final debate question. After seeing last night's performance, is Arizona still a Super Bowl contender? I'll give you a couple moments, and the first person to raise their hand and will have their choice. Spentano.
Arizona is definitely still a Super Bowl contender because the fact that the Patriots are a Super Bowl contender, and if you play a Super Bowl contender, and they were bound to win that game if it was not for their kicker. So if their kicker had simply made the kick, we would be sitting here looking at them 1-0, and they're like, all right, that was a close one, but they still looked good. Carson Palmer, obviously, he didn't look that great, but he showed last season that he can still play well enough to where they can make a large playoff push. And Larry Fitzgerald, there were reports of him retiring before the game, but he looks like he just got 5 years younger. He was a monster out there.
And before I go to Eric, who will have to supply the no side of the argument, I will ask you, Spentano, even though you're calling the Patriots Super Bowl contender, which they likely are, it was not Tom Brady under center. It was Jimmy Garoppolo. And the Cardinals' defense, thought to be top 5, top 10, they had a lot of trouble stopping this guy with LeGarrette Blount also as the starting running back. So I'm interested by your response. Just here to provide the devil's advocate here, and yes, feel free to answer that.
As Bill Belichick's on the sideline, I mean, I'm going to say he's definitely the best coach in NFL history, and he can just game plan with almost anyone. It was just Bill Belichick. That's all I can say.
Okay, Eric, why are the Cardinals not a Super Bowl contender?
Because, Eli, you brought up my point. That's not Tom Brady under center. That's how he'll make his first NFL career start. It's not Deion Lewis in the backfield. It's not Rob Ninkovich, their best D lineman at D end. And it's not Rob Gronkowski, arguably the best tight end ever already, and definitely the best tight end in the league right now. Carson Palmer I think he's coming down to earth this year after a stellar year, last year. David Johnson had some good runs. Larry Fitzgerald does look phenomenal. But I still think Carson Palmer's going down a little bit, and I think the team goes down with him.
Okay, and it must be brought up in my estimation that going back to the last few games of last year, in the NFC, in the divisional game against the Packers, he did not play well. They barely got by on the Packers on that game. He threw multiple interceptions, some in the end zone. In the NFC Championship game against the Panthers, he absolutely crumbled under pressure. And then even in their preseason opener, his preseason opener, where he found action against the Texans, he did not play well either. So that could definitely factor into Carson Palmer if he's coming back down to earth. Spentano, I'm going to come to you for a counter.
Well, Carson Palmer's best part of the season was the middle of the season last year, and he's at a point where I think he's earned enough respect to give him the benefit of the doubt. He could drop off, but he's only 38, I believe. And he's 36, so he's so he has a chance. And I feel like the Cardinals, I don't know exactly what Bruce Arians was doing, putting Chandler Jones at cornerback at some plays. That was a very interesting move, and I don't think they're going to go with that again. So I think that'll definitely help their defense. And
all right.
It was the Hunter's first game back, and I think that he's going to have a very nice year with that extension.
Okay, Eric.
Like you said, Carson Palmer is 36. He is younger than Drew Brees and Tom Brady, but those guys are like workout warriors. And Tom Brady was avocado ice cream. Carson Palmer, as times, has been questioned with his work ethic back in Cincinnati. still think he's coming down to earth this year.
All right. Worth mentioning that the Cardinals, they were missing one or two defensive players, but unless anyone, the two of you, want to get a point in to end, I will make my decision. All right, Eric?
And Drew Brees has put up almost 5,000-yard seasons, throwing to basically nobody last year, while Carson Palmer still has a Larry Fitzgerald, who is an absolute beast, John Brown, who's going to be a good player in this league, David Johnson, and Chris Johnson, who before he got hurt last year was still a decent player in this league.
All right.
Just going back to your point.
I mean, it's not like Palmer played awful. 65% passes, 280 or 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. It's not like he played awful. He just didn't play like great like some of the performances we saw. But it's not like he was so bad that they couldn't have won that game. They should have won the game, but their kicker missed the field goal.
All right. I think that will wrap up our debate segment for the day, for the night. I'll come back with the winners right before we leave. A couple other things to take care of. Russell Wilson possibly dealing with a sprained ankle off the play of Ndamukong Suh, a shocker there, going at feet. Will he miss the Rams game? Obviously, Roman's trade of Russell Wilson for Theo Riddick, where he sent Theo Riddick to our friend Kenny. That's looking interesting right now after Theo Riddick had a very nice performance against that porous Colts D. RG3 is down. Yep. Anything else quick before I make my final decision? Anyone want to get in a point? Anyone about just topics that happened yesterday or going on right now during the Monday night game?
Steelers up 7-6.
Did Antonio Brown score?
Yeah, scored 1 touchdown.
How about Jordan Reed?
Jordan Reed looked nice on the first drive. I'm not sure about after that.
All right.
All right. So again, without any further delay, you can put the drum roll in, and the winner of the first Under the Hood debate is Eric Anderson. Again, another great debate. Not an easy thing to do on your feet. Spentano, I'm sure you will be back. Please do not be that salty. But it was a good first trial. I hope the viewers at home enjoyed it. Any last bookkeeping to take care of? Ryan Nassib still sucks. The Giants somehow going to win. Cowboys lost. All is well. And with that, thank you for tuning in, and good night.